PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the podcaster who still gets a little nervous sometimes because, I don't know, you're out there, I'm out there, and we're meeting across the deep dark night. It's not easy, but I'm here to stay calm and try to calm things down, to soothe me and soothe you at the same time. So if you're confused, you say, I don't know if that's possible. I say, well, let's try. Let's see if it is. What do you say we get on with the show? It's time for Sleep With Me podcast that puts you to sleep. And we're able to be here twice a week for free because of these sponsors here. Thanks. Hey, I don't know if you've ever thought about becoming a patron, supporting the podcast, if you rely on it night after night after night, if you listen to more than a couple episodes a month. You know, a lot of work goes into the show, and the people that support the show on a monthly basis who pay for a free podcast, they do get a bunch of amazing extras, but most people don't just pay for it for the extras, like Steven, whose review I'm going to read here. Hey, my name's Steven, and I love to sleep. There are times, though, I wake up wide awake in the middle of the night. I started listening to the free version of Sleep With Me podcast, and I absolutely loved it. I like how it gives me a distraction and gives my mind a reason to wander, and I always go back to sleep. I know that quality productions like this take time and money, so when I heard about the option to support the show with a paid subscription, I was only happy to subscribe. You rock, Scooter. Thank you for what you do. I'm very grateful. I love the story-only episodes, including those that are all intros. I also love the fact that I can go back and listen to the older episodes. Good stuff. So thank you, Steven. If that resonates with you and you're in a position to support the show at $5, $10, or $20 a month, not only to support it for you, but for a lot of other people who benefit, thousands and thousands and thousands of listens every single night for free. So please consider supporting the show if you want it to be here for you and everybody else, if you get a lot out of it. And you want a little bit of fun stuff in return, sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron, sleepwithmepodcast.com/PATRON. You could sign up right now or do it tomorrow. Thanks. All right, everybody. It is time to talk about my Helix Dusk Luxe. I love my Helix bed. I'm actually getting ready to do some traveling a few different places, and I'm not kidding. I'm not looking forward to it because I have not found a bed no matter where I stay. Like, I'm always forlorn, tossing and turning, saying, oh, where has my Helix Dusk gone? And the reason why is because one mattress does not fit everyone's needs. You say, oh, well, this one will fit most people's needs, not my needs. You know how Helix does it? Helix has a quiz that just takes 2 minutes to complete. Have you taken the quiz? HelixSleep.com/sleep. Takes 2 minutes to complete, matches your body type and sleep preferences to get the perfect mattress for you. Because why would you buy a mattress made for someone else? With Helix, you're getting a mattress that you know will be perfect for the way you sleep. Everybody's unique, and Helix knows that, so they have several different mattress models to choose from. Soft, medium, firm, great for cooling you down if you sleep hot, great for spinal alignment to prevent morning aches and pains, even a Helix Plus mattress for plus-size sleepers. And like I said, I sleep hot, I toss, I turn, I sleep on my side, I sleep on my stomach, I'm moving all over. I have not found anything to compare. I took the quiz, I get matched with the Helix Dusk, I picked the Helix Dusk Luxe, and there's nothing that matches up to it. I'm so comfortable in my bed. So if you're looking for a mattress, you take the quiz, you order the mattress you're matched to, and the mattress comes right to your door, shipped for free. You don't ever have to go to a mattress store again. So just go to HelixSleep.com/sleep, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that'll give you the best sleep of your life. They have a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. Helix even has financing options and flexible payment plans, so a great night's sleep is never far away. And Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at HelixSleep.com/sleep. That's Helix Sleep, HELIX sleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. Everybody is a document sponsor. Tonight's episode of Sleep With Me is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. And, I deal with, stress comes up for me all the time. And a lot of it is how I'm thinking and feeling, or how I'm thinking about my feelings and getting stuck in either my thoughts or my feelings instead of looking at my actions and taking constructive actions. Stress can come up in all kinds of ways, and in a world that's telling you to do more, sleep less, and grind all the time, This is a reminder to take care of yourself, do less, and maybe try some therapy. And talk therapy for me is a part of my week. It's actually right in the middle of my week. It's an anchor. It gives me a chance to take stock of how I'm doing, to talk to somebody that will listen and help me find the tools I need, that'll listen with compassion and empathy. And I love introducing people in my personal life to BetterHelp because it really helps them get past the obstacles that have kept them from going to therapy, whether it's cost, convenience, or just overall intimidation. BetterHelp makes it so easy. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try. And this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Sleep With Me listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/sleepwithme. That's BetterHelp.com/sleepwithme. Thanks and good night, everybody. All right, everybody, it is time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone, one-part podcast where I got to pick up the pace because I need your help. I need the listeners who support the sponsors because that's what keeps the show free for anybody who wants to listen any place. Over 470 episodes in the archives, all because of the listeners who supported the sponsors. And right now I'm looking for listeners who supported sponsors. I really do need your help. Like I said, I'll send you a video. Just to support the sponsor. I can't tell you how important it is for the sponsors. All our sponsors are direct response, meaning they have a spreadsheet and they just check how many people from Sleep With Me heard about our spot and then supported us, and that's how they decide their sponsorship. It's not about brand awareness, it's about action. That's what the Sleepy Supporter Zone is about. It's like your actions that keep the show free for everybody. So please, if you hear about a free trial on the show or you hear about a sponsor and you support them, please let them know about it and let me know about it at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. So thanks, everybody. The second part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone is you getting the support you need, and there's links to resources you could connect with right now if you're having a tough time, right in our show notes. And it's about being a part of positive change with our actions, saying Black Lives Matter, saying stop API hate, saying support Ukraine. And there's links to resources, to ways you can learn more and support right in our show notes. And it's about supporting and getting involved with our actions as well. For me, and one of the organizations you're going to be hearing about all year is the Midnight Mission. You know, the Midnight Mission is trying to move people from homelessness into housing by providing basic emergency and life-saving services. And you could always learn more at their website, which will be linked to in the show notes. But we are doing a lot of activities that are fun and supporting people experiencing homelessness. And all you need to do is sign up for our free newsletter. You'll get more access to me than anywhere else other than Patreon for free and have fun, including live events starting this month, April, at sleepwithmepodcast.com/midnight mission. So sign up for that newsletter. Please sign up for that newsletter. It's free. I'm going to be doing live streams. We're going to be putting together hygiene kits. I'm going to be doing live shows. If we build it enough, I could come to your town, but it's going to take people just signing up for this newsletter and being a part of the community around the show. Please do that for me. If you're hearing me and you do one thing, sleepwithmepodcast.com/midnight mission. Please sign up for that. It's going to make a huge difference in a lot of people's lives, and you'll have fun and you'll be empowered to be a part of positive change. So support us, supporting the Midnight Mission, and wherever you are in the world, we'll be able to support you, supporting people experiencing homelessness in your community too. That's it. Mystery Bard. A lot of people who help out on the show. Who are they?
Poster son sounds like a near fall. Wrote the theme song. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the mystery bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your
Thanks, Mystery Bard. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Please sign up for our free, fun newsletter supporting people experiencing homelessness, live versions of Sleep With Me, live watch-throughs, listen-throughs, all at sleepwithmepodcast.com/midnight mission. And that's it. Let's get on with the show. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. I guess I should say of sorts, because I don't know why. I always mean, this has been on my to-do list for like 30 years. Look up the lyrics of Carnival of Sorts. It makes me think of a tangent, Carnival of Sorting stuff. So let me cross my fingers and hope I remember that, and remember to look up the lyrics of that song. Also, I get three different, that's a song by R.E.M., and I get Carnival of Sorts, Pretty Persuasion, and Can't Get There From Here all mixed up anyway. Oh, and Boxcars. There's a song with Boxcars. Boxcars is stirring or something. Or are they whirring? Maybe that's in Carnival of Sorts, because I associate carnivals and boxcars a little bit. Not in a pejorative sense, by all means. Just that you say, well, we keep, that's a boxcar full of tent stuff. Of course we use boxcars. And we do say, instead the big wheel keeps on turning, we say the boxcar keeps on wheeling. Anyway, we're here for a sleep podcast. Do with a bedtime story. All you need to do, all that you might do if you choose is to get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever is keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, like things on your mind that you're thinking about, feelings, anything you're feeling emotionally or that's coming up for you. So thoughts about the past, present, the future, feelings about the thoughts, or physical sensations. You could have feelings about the physical sensations. You could have physical sensations about the feelings. I got both of those a lot of the time. Could be something else, change in time, temperature, your routine. Could be something that you like, we could just say, it feels like the deep dark night is the deep dark night. Doesn't even feel that way. So whatever it is, I'm here to take your mind off of that and keep you company, not to make it smaller, but to just say, hey, why don't I sit here for a little while and tell you a story and keep you company, and maybe you get to fall asleep during it, because all I'm going to do is be here rambling. So the way I do that is I try to create a safe place with the structure of the show and my intention. And also I try to take the safe place, I try to smooth it, I try to pat it down and say safe place and move away with a magic move, but in slow motion. And then I'll send my voice across the deep dark night. I just realized how ridiculous it is, because I was actually doing it while I was saying it. Like I even would say safe place, like a magician, or what the character on Arrested Development, Job, I think was his name. So, but I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic. I'm going to get mixed up. I'm going to get confused. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to repeat myself, all to keep you company and take your mind off of stuff. And if you're new, there's a lot to tell you. But the most important thing I can tell you is that you're important and your sleep is important, obviously. But the fact that you deserve a good night's sleep is really the most important thing I could say, and that maybe you might not even believe or agree with, but maybe you could feel it a little bit. Some part of you could feel a small shift. and say, yeah, you know what? I do deserve a good night's sleep. I am a little bit fed up with this. That's why I decided to look up this wackadoodle podcast of yours. And I say, you're right. So you're right, too. And that's why I make the show. It's kind of twofold. I make the show because I really believe that. And I really believe that not only do you deserve the rest you need and that you probably desire, you deserve a bedtime that doesn't have any dread in it, that doesn't have, like, I used to start worrying about going to bed for school on Saturday afternoon. I'd start worrying about Sunday night and Monday morning. And that was one of the, biggest, hardest stretches for me. But I've had other ones where I say you start thinking about bedtime in a non-positive way. And I hope I could even make it neutral. Because if you get the rest you need, your life's going to be more manageable. You could be living the life that you want to live more fully. And hopefully you could get to the point where you're getting the rest you need on a regular basis and you could be out there flourishing in the world because our world needs you. Our world needs that and you deserve it. So that's important. What's also important is that I've been there. I kind of just said it. I've been there, all tossing, turning, mind racing trouble, getting to sleep trouble, staying asleep. And so I know how it feels in the deep, dark night. That's why I use those words. So if I can help, it's also something, it's important to me because I might not know exactly what you're dealing with, but I kind of have a general idea of that it doesn't feel great and it's not easy. And so if I can be here for you, that's my honor. Now, there is a little catch in there. This podcast is very, very different than most other podcasts or anything out there. I started this show in 2013 because I was that kid that couldn't fall asleep, and I wanted something to listen to that was a little bit fun and distracting. And so that's the idea behind the show. And so the idea of even someone talking to you and putting you to sleep was kind of new, and it still is new. You say, wait a second, you listen to a podcast to fall asleep? Is it like birds and, the sounds of leaves and rain? No, that didn't work for me. I tried that. Oh, did you try like sonic sounds? Aren't all sounds sonic? No, this one's like, it only existed in a Scooter's imagination. It was the sound of Sonic moving around, Sonic the Hedgehog. But Scooter's imagination couldn't release it because it wasn't, it was called the Sonic Sounds Podcast. Well, that sounds unbelievably awesome. I hope a listener reminds me to reach out, or if someone works for Sega, they say, Scooch, or anybody that works for the sequel movie or whatever, they say, Scooch, you got yourself a deal. Well, here's 3 figures. We'll do. I'd say I would probably, I don't know if I could actually do it for 3 figures, but I would think about it. I'd say I could do a 2-minute podcast for that, but if you give me permission to use sonic sounds. Anyway, holy cow. Oh, so whatever it is, so the idea of falling asleep to a podcast, particularly this one's not easy. So give the show a few tries. That's what most listeners say. It's totally understandable if you're skeptical or you're doubtful. And if this podcast doesn't work for you, or you already know, you say, yeah, I don't like the cut of your style, cut of your pants, as we say. Check out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. There's tons of other sleep podcasts and sleepy audio there. So there's that. A couple other things, if you're new, that can throw you off. Structure, the show is very different. Show starts off with a greeting, so you feel welcome. Then there's support for listeners and support for the podcast, so it can come out twice a week for free. Versus, we could do it another way where it's part of a service or whatever. It'd still have sponsors and stuff, but I don't know. Like, I prefer it coming out twice a week for free is my goal. So then paying for it is optional. Then there's the intro, which we're part of the way through. That goes on and on and on. That really can create some strong feelings for people between the support and the intro. Because I guess if you're already on guard, you say, what is this intro? You're going on and on and on about nothing except for the pot. And I say, you got it. You caught me. I'm doing nothing fast. I'm going nowhere. because the intro is the chance to kind of have the sunset, the transition period between bedtime and wake time. And for a lot of us, that takes like 15, 20 minutes. So some listeners listen to the intro as they're getting ready for bed, or they're in bed, or they're doing something else relaxing. And the intro is the wind down. Now, there are people that fall asleep. There are people that skip the intro. So you can kind of see how it goes after you become a regular listener. If you say, okay, this kind of works for me, you could adjust from there. But I highly recommend having some wind down time. Whether this podcast is a part of it or not is optional. But I really, truly, I have an hour wind down. So if I want to be asleep at a certain time, like hopefully I'm starting my wind down an hour before that. And that involves reading, meditating, stretching, journaling, maybe other stuff. So doodling, not canoodling, definitely not. Some part of my brain said that. I said, I don't remember that. Also, does that mean what I think it means? Or does it just mean wasting time? Because I haven't wasted my time that way, but I've wasted plenty of time. So the intro is your wind down routine. So I can understand if it throws you off, because you say, is this just gratuitous talking? And I say, oh boy, is it. This is the most gratuitous. Like I said, this is the only podcast that has gratuitous pregnant pauses in it. Like that one. Oh, ha, ha. So, yeah, there's the intro. Then there's more business or sponsor stuff, because the show comes out for free twice a week. That's our goal. And maybe even more one day. I mean, that would be my new goal. And then there's the episode. And tonight I'm not exactly sure what the episode is. I think it'll be a childhood story I wrote, but I'm not positive. But it'll be a bedtime story. It'll be about 45 or 50 minutes long. And then there's the thank yous at the end. So that's just structure the show. That's why I make the show. And all I can tell you, the best piece of advice I can tell you is kind of listen passively, because it's a podcast that's not really meant to be listened to. And it's also only meant to be here to keep you company, not really to put you to sleep. I'm here to take your mind off of stuff. Like with the idea of you may already have a new preference. You say, Scoots, I love your show, but if there was a Sonic Sounds podcast, I would love it. And I've had my ideas taken from by other businesses without, they said, well, you gave it away for free. Thanks. So I would prefer to get paid for the Sonic Sounds podcast and be a part of it. But if I was to have a corporation take one of my ideas for free, though I'm talking about it now, so probably you'd be caught. But I would love to hear the Sonic Sounds podcast. So, okay, so there's that, and then, so I think that's it. Give the show a few tries, see if it can take your mind off stuff, see if you can kind of listen passively along, because I really want to help you fall asleep. I really appreciate you coming by, and I really hope I can help you fall asleep. Thanks again, and here's a couple of ways I'm able to do this for you for free twice a week. Sleep With Me is brought to you by Progressive. Have you tried the Name Your Price tool yet? It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. It's easy to start a quote, and you'll be able to find a rate that works for you. It's just one of the many ways you could save with Progressive. Get your quote today at Progressive.com and see why 4 out of 5 new auto customers recommend Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. All right, everybody, it's time for a little bit different episode here. I've recorded one other of these, but it was a college paper that I did. What happened was, I guess I'll do a slow setup. In the summer, well, I don't know when you're hearing this. So in the summer of, what year is it, 2021? I was going through my childhood home for the second or third time, procrastinating on that. And, I mean, especially because I don't live near there. Shipping stuff's always hard. But, we're trying to clear out everything so that the house could be sold instead of just rented out or whatever. So kind of going through any stuff I have or my parents had held on my behalf. And I went through and I found a college paper, and then I found this paper, or the story, and I think it's really interesting. I thought this was illustrated, and the timeline. I'm interested to read the story. I only have looked at the first page of it. It has a, what's that called? Paperclip on it. And I have a feeling that this paper is from Computer Camp, the legendary Computer Camp. If people have listened to the show, I'll talk about it, which actually opens up my thoughts more. And I'm interested to read the story. I'm also nervous because, one, I don't know how long the story is. It's only a few pages, and it's not full pages. So I'm like, is this going to be a whole episode, or what will happen after I read the story? But it's also like, what is in this story? What was, like, not the quality of my writing, but you think about people change, and, you know, that there's just like, I was young, I was ignorant, I was naive. So it's like, what is this writing going to reveal about me? Which I think will be a positive thing. And, you know, what kind of problematic things can I look at and say, do I need to go back and apologize or fix anything? Not that I'm sure that, well, we'll talk about one thing but some of it I said, what was I thinking? So a Computer Camp, if you're new to the podcast or you've never heard this story before, could have been, I would think it would have been when I was in 7th or 8th grade, which is really embarrassing. No, it could have been younger. Yeah, no, it's probably younger than that. Somewhere between 5th grade, I think it was probably 4th or 5th grade. So this probably wasn't written then. But around 4th or 5th grade, we got signed up. My brother and I think my brother Carl and I don't know if my sister was signed up. I hope for her sake we weren't. But one summer, we got signed up for, I call it Computer Camp, but it really wasn't. It was like a class at a other elementary school in their computer lab. I think the Split Rock was the name of the school we were at, or at least it was near Split Rock, which there's also a quarry there. Split Rock Quarry is near there, legendary in Syracuse lore. And so I don't know. We'll see where this goes. It could be on a journey. So maybe I'll save, as I read the story, I could tell you the story of Computer Camp. Well, the bad choice I made at Computer Camp, I'll tell you now, because I don't want to, I'm trying to put you to sleep. So you say, well, Scoots, I want to hear what you did at Computer Camp. So we were taking this class at this thing. I don't think it was just logo or whatever you learned back then, where you could make the turtle go around or whatever, but maybe that was a class. I thought it was more of a word processing camp, because I can remember writing stories and drawing stuff too. It also reminds me, now that I'm talking it out, like it's one point Los Angeles, when I was a teacher there, had a program called, I think it was called Write to Read, where they were trying to teach reading through creative writing. I liked it. I mean, it was that there was no wrong way to write. You didn't have to worry about spelling or grammar. This was in grammar elementary, primary school. And I was a 2nd grade teacher's aide, and the kids were we would go to Write to Read class in a computer lab. And I don't necessarily think this program had a storied history, but but I had a positive experience with it, because I loved that the kids would just be able to write whatever they wanted. Then we would print out the stories. I think this is what would happen. Sometimes we'd draw them, or I'd read with them, or they would tell me the stories, and they were always so amazing. And I feel like this Computer Camp was very similar, so I don't know if this is when I wrote this story. But the one thing that happened at Computer Camp that was really humiliating, mostly I guess it was more confusing for me. It was very not positive for my mom or my brother. And I still don't know. Like, I made a lot of poor choices as a child. I made a lot of poor choices in my life. And a lot of times the reaction of adults, and then I guess looking back, I mean, I had feelings, I need literally, I'm not even being joking, like help from a professional counselor, therapist. but also doing a lot of reading and work on my own. And for some reason, I think of Brene Brown because she talks about that big S word, and it's SHAME. That's what came up for me with this memory. Not anymore, though. I say, this is a confused young man. That's what I think of now. But I mean, my takeaway at the time was like, it must be I wasn't even that down about it because this was the kind of choices I fell into and mistakes I made all the time. But so what happened was we would have recess. It was a summer program, right? I think it was only a week long. And it was all kids around the same age, which I'm guessing, I don't know how old kids are, like third, fourth, fifth graders is what I'm guessing. And for some reason, so we were allowed to go in this grassy area where you had recess. And for some reason during recess, it might have been the last day class party and I may have had too much punch, but I decided not to go back inside and go to the restroom, but to go outside while recess was going on against a tree. And not really I don't know what I was thinking, and of course everybody could see me, and of course everybody they said, little Andy's going to the bathroom outside, and it was very inappropriate. They said, what do you, the teacher said, what? And they called my mom, and of course then my mom, and they said, what? My mom said, what? And I guess I don't know at the time, to be honest. I'm looking back at it and playing the kind of tape in my mind. It just seemed like it didn't seem. I mean, obviously, it was some sort of. I said, was I acting out there? Was I acting out for attention, or was I to have some sort of? I mean, I think I had a neuroses about I said, why wouldn't I have just gone to the bathroom? Was I overexcited? Did I really have to? Because I don't remember oh gosh, I got to go now, or oh, I don't want to ask about going to the bathroom, or oh, I don't want to go to the bathroom. So I don't really know why I did it. I'm sure Freud would say, well, you know, because you were lonely or something. I say, well, okay, whatever, man. But so that's my main memory from that computer camp. Other than that, my brother was at that computer camp, and one other kid I knew from our church that maybe was in I don't remember going to Sunday school, but I remember this kid kind of, and then I never thought I'd see him again because we didn't go to the same school, but he was there. And so those are the only things I remember, other than the looks on the teachers' faces or the volunteer parents that were teaching this class of shock and confusion. So that's my story about computer camp. Use a restroom. I never I got a ticket one time for going to the bathroom outside when I was 20 to 21. So I guess I didn't learn my lesson. At least they gave me a ticket. That also wasn't the last time I did it, but that time I had to go. Sometimes you have to go, but I was trying to be stealthy. This time I don't think I was. Some of you maybe knew, and you're like, "Is this a sleep podcast, or are you?" And I say, "Yeah, well, these are I'm taking a risk here. Maybe this is relatable to somebody. It doesn't have. Maybe it's not peeing in public, but you did something." As a child, you have no idea why. There are strong feelings behind it, and some would say with good reason. And I don't know if my mom tried to say, is there something wrong with, instead of saying, is there something wrong with you, say, are you all right? That was an interesting choice you made. I would hope that that's what I would say to myself now. I'd say, tell me about that choice. What led up to, wow, you must, that sounds like it was intense. I mean, this is this is literally the kind of work I do when I talk to a therapist. So, okay, well, that sounds like, it must have, did you feel some of that stuff Brene Brown talks about? Yeah, I bet. Well, that's confusing. And, well, now we don't even really know why you made that choice, but you're just a kid, sometimes you forget that as an adult, that back then you were just a kid. Now you're an adult. Maybe I could try to care for you and soothe you here, huh? And say, yeah, that's hard that this choice got made, and we don't even know why. Confusing, but I don't know if you necessarily need to take on that SHAME either. Just seems like a bad choice you made. And do you remember making it again? Oh, yeah, you just taught, well, later in life, but in the same exact manner. I don't think you made that choice again, so that served you well. Don't pee in front of an entire class like you learned that lesson, right? Don't pee in front of a whole class of kids during recess. Go somewhere by yourself where you're hidden or use the bathroom. So if you're new, that's just a little bit about me. This is what you're dealing with, human being, and that's just scratching the surface. So I'm interested to see if we'll scratch any other surfaces here. So this story may have been written in 1991. If it was, like I thought, maybe, well, I don't know what to expect. And I wonder if what this was for, because it doesn't have anything on it other than the story. And maybe it was written to be like a children's book. I don't know. I did find a report card that maybe I'll break out. I guess I was in remedial reading because they didn't know I had dyslexia. This isn't a joke either. And so I found my 7th grade report card or my 9th grade report card, and I was in remedial reading. And I don't even remember, here's the thing, don't even remember taking that class at all. I said, really? I was in remedial reading. I don't even remember that. And apparently I wasn't doing so hot in any of my classes, but yeah, like I had dyslexia, but they didn't know that. So, okay, so let's start. Why don't we do this? We'll just see how this goes. I'll start reading through the story and almost word for word, and then kind of see where this goes. A long time ago, in a place not far from here, there lived a great king. He was loved by all his people and was known for his acts of kindness. The city that surrounded the huge castle that the king lived in was called Scotchtown. Scotchtown was the most beautiful place in the world. The prisons were empty, the land was fertile, there was never any wars, and no one was poor. The king's name was Wendell. He was chubby and had cherry red cheeks. Sounds like Santa Claus. His hair was gray and silky. So gray and silky hair, and his mouth was etched into a permanent smile. The future looked magnificent for Scotchtown. Oh, wait, so I kind of do remember the story. I think it was donated. I mean, maybe this is a more mature story. I'm like, wait a second, this is starting to sound like an episode of Sleep With Me. And like I lifted some of this from something else. One day, Wendell decided to check to make sure the future would be good. The king called upon his magician and seer. I spelled seer like S-E-A-R. Interesting. Wasn't corrected, but I don't think this was turned in for a grade. I think this was just a draft. The king called upon his magician and seer, Trem. Wendell asked Trem to tell him the future of Scotchtown. Trem wanted to make sure that Wendell really wanted to know the future because Trem told Wendell the future cannot be changed no matter how hard you try. Wendell was confident that he would not want to change the future and told Trem to inform him of Scotchtown's fate. So I like this so far, and I think about the kid that wrote this, and if it was written in 1991, that's like Angst City. So I don't know what I'm setting up here, but now I'm getting a better sense of I'm setting something up. But let's think about this place called Scotchtown and what echoes in Sleep With Me. So Scotchtown is interesting because it sounds like something I made up, of course. Wendell He's very Santa Claus-like. This is male-centric, but it is written by a male and, like an early adolescent male. Cherry red cheeks. He was chubby, and his hair was gray and silky. And his mouth was etched into a permanent smile. So I do like the imagery there. Not just the Santa Claus imagery, but that, the permanent smile. I say, okay, Wendell's one of those people that's like always has a smile. I say, okay, that's soothing. And even though I strayed from this, like I remember one of the things that has always stuck with me is like at that time I said the prisons were empty. And that was one of the things, like being raised Catholic and some of the teachings that didn't sit well with me, but some of them that did was like the idea of, like, what does this mean that we're incarcerating so many people? And that, like, even though I drifted far away from that, I ended up coming back to it and thinking about that a lot and working with people that were incarcerated for some time because, I don't know, like, I think you said, geez, I don't know about this. I don't know if I'm comfortable with this, and even as a kid, I think this is foreshadowing for my real life. But also, I think, like, from a storytelling side, I say, okay, this place is a little too perfect, eh? So it does have elements, like whoever was teaching or running this class, and kind of the story structure, you say, like when you think about Hero's Journey or like Dan Harmon, the Dan Harmon kind of story circle idea. It's like you. So in this one, it's this is like the regular world, or you. The regular world is Wendell's world. Wendell's always happy or confident, at least. Magnificent present. So why wouldn't there be? The future looked magnificent for Wendell. And so you know, this is your normal world. And I think it's also funny from my perspective of like thinking about season 2 of Get Bezos and that whole season. I don't know what year that came out, but the whole season of Get Bezos and the idea of where it came from was based on utopias. And I had gone to see, I'd gone to see Brad Bird speak somewhere with my brother, and Brad Bird was kind of talking about, this is right around when Tomorrowland was coming out. But Brad Bird was kind of talking about dystopia, and I guess this has always kind of been an ongoing debate, so I don't want to wade into like dystopias versus, but Brad Bird was like challenging the audience in some sense, like, oh, why doesn't anybody... Isn't that a creative constraint, writing in a utopia? And I took that to heart and said, okay, what would it be like? And I said, well, the problem with utopias is that if it's a real utopia, it lacks conflict. So that was like the whole premise of season 2 of Get Bezos. It took place in a utopia. And I don't know, I just really liked that idea of that creative constraint. I still do, because it's like a puzzle. Like you say, okay, how do you create... If the rules of the world are it's a utopia and not a utopia, wink, wink, how do you create a conflict in that? And of course, that's like an unattainable, that's just something you strive for. You say, okay, well, that's impossible. I'm going to have to bend to those rules a bit because you're right. If it's an actual utopia, everyone will be happy all the time. And I don't know, it also had fun with being able to take it to the 2 levels, because it said, okay, well, there's also the level of belief system and who created this utopia, how did it come to be, and what are the higher levels of existence within this utopia? You know, is it this in our world or parallel world? This is when I was working on it, but ended up, oh, no, it's okay. So it's far in our future. So that would mean it's still based on the same, like some of the same underlying belief systems. So then it's like, okay, I don't know. That was one of my favorite, it had some of my more favorite moments, especially the ongoing, I love ongoing bits, of course. And so having the ongoing bit with that the higher power or creator was on sabbatical so that the angels were running and everything, and they're not perfect. You know, they're just demigods. No offense, angels. That was fiction, by the way. If you do have super, please. So, I don't know. So those are something. So that's the first you. So I guess this would be the need section if we were going by the story. Like, so I'm just kind of projecting it. But so Wendell decided to check to make sure the future would be good. So I guess everything wasn't perfect. There was some sort of, and this is where your teen angst comes through. There's some sort of underlying turbulence or lack of faith or something deep down, which I can identify with. So Wendell wanted, or just unease about the future. So Wendell said, hey, I got this wizard and seer, somebody that sears my meat and can see the future, maybe. And I think there was art with this. I don't know. But Wendell said, yo, Trem, can you tell me what the future of Scotchtown is? And Trem said, I could. This is, very steady story device. It could tell you what the future is, but you can't change the future. So do you really want to know? And that's quite a conundrum, right? And you don't even want, that's like the kind of conundrum you never want to be presented with, because just like Wendell, then it is a misery of choice. You say, okay, so choose. Do you want to know or not? Because you can't change it either way. Where someone without an underlying turbulence like Wendell or I, someone that was more well-adjusted like Ray, one, they would never, even if they found themselves making that choice to talk to Trem, they'd say, yeah, you're right, Trem. I don't need to know. I just got to turn everything over to my HP and let it go, because Trem says no matter how hard you try. But Wendell was confident he wouldn't want to change the future, and told Trem to inform him of Scotchtown's fate. Okay, get ready, because who knows what's coming next. Trem sighed deeply and frowned. Wendell, my friend, I see dark clouds over Scotchtown. Our future is grim. 3 cataclysmic events will strike your people: a flood, a famine, and a war. I see hope at the end of a dark tunnel, but someone will have to make the supreme sacrifice. The king smiled and thanked Trem, and then the magician left Scotchtown forever. So you need go. So this is kind of the go part of the story, or like where this is, I guess, kind of still in the need, but you say, okay, Trem says, things don't look, also, I love, my favorite part of this is that Trem leaves town. I love you, Trem. I mean, that's like forever. Trem says, by the way, now that I can change, I'm out. I didn't look up my future, just the future of this geographic area. So I quit and I'm out. That I like a lot. It is starting to feel a little tropey, so I'm wondering where we're going with this. And I say, oh boy, this is one of these, but it's also like right in the Sleep With Me wheelhouse. Supreme sacrifice, predictability. Hopefully we'll have something surprising. But 3 things. So again, I like that probably something I was still trying to work on, which is rising conflict, or, raising the stakes and stuff like that. But he says, okay, there is hope. But yeah, there's going to be these 3 things. And then Trem left Scotchtown forever. I think it's interesting, too, that I had dialogue. I'm proud of that. I say, okay, it went like Trem sighed deeply and frowned. I mean, I guess I would say if I could change anything, I'd say Wendell would say, okay, are you sure you want to know? Or maybe I'll dole out the information a little bit slower. Let's see what Scoots or little Andy did. The king did not tell his people of Trem's prediction because he did not want to upset them. Project much? That's funny. So we'll talk about that. Wendell had decided to prepare for the flood, which he thought would come first. The king had his huge and beautiful estate knocked down, and with the stone from the knocked-down castle, Wendell built a gigantic tower that reached high into the heavens. Sure enough, as the last stone was placed in the tower, it began to rain. Scotchtown was on the coast, and soon the ocean was rising towards the village. The king moved all his subjects into the castle, and the town was enveloped by water. The castle was surrounded by water, but the tower was high enough that the people were safe. Months passed, and soon the water sank back into the ocean. Okay, so I like the idea that also Wendell is like a little bit codependent, like, because I reckon, like you say, okay, I don't want to upset anybody, so I'm not going to tell anybody about this. Or you could say typical leader, say, well, I don't want, like, I'll deal with this. And I think I probably did have to draw or do something for this, because I guess I can see this, like, as somewhat visual, that I say, okay, in kind of basic rule making, you say, okay, what's going to be your sacrifice, Wendell? What are you going to give up? So this isn't you need go search. So this is like the search, or the kind of a little bit different, but because I don't know exactly, I don't think I had in mind where is Wendell going to end up, or maybe I wrote the ending. I'm hoping the ending is what I think it is, which would be Angst City. And probably I said, where did I get this idea from? It's definitely from something else. But I like this idea. I mean, it's interesting, and it does also lend itself to, there's some interesting choices, not good or bad, but interesting choices. One, the king didn't tell the people. I thought that was very Drew-like. See, I don't want anybody upset with me or with the situation. And then Wendell decides the flood it was first. We don't explain that, but that was what Trem mentioned. So you say that makes sense. Okay, let's knock down the castle and build a tower. I like that idea. I mean, if you have the capacity to do that. Also a cool idea. Like, even as a kid, I say, okay, building a giant tower. In towers, Freud, could you please stay out of this conversation? But building these giant towers does seem cool. Like, you say, okay, I got to move on. Freud just ruined all that for me. Reach high into the heavens. But sure enough, the last stone, it began to rain. So you get this, like, Noah and the Ark type thing. But I like how I found at least some part of me, or somebody that I gave me notes said, I don't know about this. So I put it on the coast. So it's like, okay, now it's more believable. Also, I know it's going to, I remember the next part of the story, I think. So, but I think, like, what I'm drawn to is, like, that the choice was, like, that months passed. So I didn't feel the need at the time to kind of fill in all the blank spots, but I do think it's interesting, or would be interesting, to think about. And it kind of reminds me of other fantasy books, or even Terry Pratchett books, of, like, what was going on in this tower. Or, like, you seeing a cutaway of the tower. Like, this must have been a really massive tower, because we don't know how many. It was a village, which is smaller than a town. So even if you had like 1,000, 2,000 people in this tower, I think that would be cool to see kind of how they were managing. So then the rain stopped and the water sank back into the ocean. So some of you may already be telegraphed where the next thing is going. The people cleaned their homes in the hot sun, so they got lucky. This hot sun dried the waterlogged town. You say, okay, well, that's kind of a best case scenario, actually, that their homes were only submerged. But I also like your way of thinking, your way of fantasizing, kid, because they say, okay, yeah, they could have been, but I'm with you. The ocean slowly rose, is what you're saying. The town was like submerged, not washed. So Okay, I'm interested. I'm interested to see that. And I say, okay, again, it's kind of visual. And I like it. I can almost smell some stuff. I could feel the moisture. I could see people dealing with it. And it was spring and people were getting ready to plant crops. And when another disaster struck, the land had been saturated with the salt from the ocean and could no longer bear crops. I don't know if this is true, but I think the idea of like salting the earth is where I got that. All spring and all summer long, people attempted to grow crops successfully, but it was actually unsuccessful. Winter was coming and there was no food to store. Wendell knew something must be done. Okay, now I'm already seeing the next stage. He went into his tower and took all the treasures he had acquired over the years and packed them into a cart, and he traveled far away to Morganville. The king traded all he had, even his crown, for all the food the town had. Wendell brought all the food back to the town, and his people easily survived the winter. Did something like this happen in, like After the Glass Slipper? Did I like copy my own story? I'm thinking this, like I reused this. Somebody will have to let me know. So that was another series we did. If you're newer, it was called After the Glass Slipper. It was a tale of like Cinderella and her stepmother and her fairy godmother after she became princess and queen. At least in my mind. And the first season was more about the stepmother in competition with the fairy godmother and Cinderella. And I think the fairy godmother was, or the stepmother was actually like she continued to be the antagonist. But then in the second season, did she become the protagonist? Like, she became the protagonist to me. She kind of always was, but in the second season, was there 2 or 3 seasons of that? I think there was 3 seasons, but maybe there's just one really long one. I guess there was 3 seasons. Like the second season, yeah, because in the second season, the first season happened like early in the podcast when I hadn't, like, it was one of those bonzo stories, with our undertones and stuff. But the second season, as far as I can remember, was like Agatha, like Cinderella. Is that Cinderella? Is that the one, right? Cinderella? Yeah, because she's in the cinders. I think she's away, and Agatha's running the town. It gets overrun. And then there's people trying to deal with, or maybe she hosts everybody. She's in love with a man who became a letterman, but she's dealing with some ogres or some orgs or something, and also trying to save the fairy people. Like the fairy godmother comes from like the fairy realm, and so she's trying to help them too. Or maybe also it was like the fairy people and the human people had kind of fallen out, like reflecting kind of subtextually where things were at. Not too subtly, but I know that she had to deal with stuff. So I don't know if I reuse this, that's interesting if I did. But yeah, this kind of sets up the next part of the story. You need go, search, find. So not exactly on the Harmon, but an interesting kind of 3 challenges, and again, raising the stakes. So Wendell got him out of the flood. Then there's a famine. Okay, let's take everything out of my castle. We'll buy a bunch of food. And then this next part of the story comes. One night, the people of Scotchtown were suddenly attacked by the citizens of Morganville. Oh boy, Morganville. It seems that they ran out of food during the long, hard winter, and many of them had perished. They blamed Scotchtown for this and declared war. Scotchtown had no army because they were peaceful folk. Wendell tried to encourage the people to start an army, but they were fat and lazy after a year of no work. The army of Morganville was approaching, so Wendell took his sword and went with his smile to face the enemy alone. He fought bravely against the army, but he was stricken with a mortal wound. The army was so impressed by the courage of this one man, they feared this. So this is all very, even though I don't remember ever read stuff like this since then, the army was so impressed by the courage of this one man, they feared invading a town of people like him. Wendell returned to his people and told them of his victory. So I think that's a pretty standard, monomyth type thing, that this one great warrior can set the stage. Wendell returned to his people and told them of his victory. The people asked the king who was about to pass the big farm in Skye, how they would grow crops this spring. Wendell, smiling as always, walked out in the fields, and as he fertilized the soil with his body, the land became fertile again. Wendell disappeared into the ground, but the people knew they would reap a bountiful harvest that summer. So that's the end of the story. Not exactly, no offense to Scoots as a young kid, but I say, okay, that's kind of a recycled ending. Probably no one in my class, it probably wasn't, like, I probably read it somewhere. Or maybe it's just monomyth that I thought it was creative. Just because literally when I've been different things I used to randomize for the podcast, I've seen stories like that. But I do like, and then this kind of tying it up in a bow pretty neatly. So it kind of makes sense. Again, I think this is a plot device that I probably used in a story for Sleep With Me. But it's like, and it's also, I guess, unintentionally, I think it calls back to the beginning of like a deal, a bargain you should have never struck, right? Wendell should have never asked Trem. This actually isn't paid off in this story, but Wendell should have never asked Trem what the future was, right? Is what I was hinting at the beginning of the story, or Trem says, you can't change the future. And then in this part, like the people of Morganville shouldn't have sold all of their winter food. I don't know who was running that town. They shouldn't have come after Scotchtown. They should have just dealt with whoever. They said, you sold all our, for a bunch of gold. We got a great deal. So maybe they did make a good deal, because they said, well, wait a second. The guy gave us like whatever, a pound of gold for every potato. You say, okay, well, that does make sense on paper, not even on paper, on gold. So, but it's like a bargain that you shouldn't have been struck, or it wasn't a good idea. And then I do like the again, very similar twist from other stories, but also probably from mine of like, okay, then Wendell's making these sacrifices, but then like a lot of the people were like, oh, well, like, we're not going to do like that. Like almost like, I guess that's like probably like my own subconscious bleeding out, like, and saying, well, that's what happens when you over sacrifice or try to please everybody. That everybody's like, oh, well, you're on your own, Wendell. And then I don't necessarily like the choice, but it's just at this point in my life, I say, okay, I would definitely change the ending, but not all of the elements. And then I definitely, so I don't like the fact that he went out there. I like that he went out there on his own, but that just feels a little bit too on the nose for me, that it's like Wendell was so brave that they said, forget it. No, that doesn't make sense. So maybe it's just, I'm like jaded from reading too many stories. And then I definitely don't like the ending, the good ending. I thought it was like, honestly, I thought I was cringing because when I got to the second page of the story, I was like, wait a second, I thought it was going to end in a similar way, but like that it would be a little bit darker. Like that Wendell would like give even more sacrifice to people that would be unappreciated. So I kind of like that idea. But so I guess if I was reading the story with myself and I was saying, okay, well, I'm going to help, like, let's brainstorm this out and let me give you some notes, or let's tease it out even more. Say, okay, I like this Wendell. But how are we going to play against that? Or is Wendell going to stay the same through the whole story? Yeah, I'd like him to stay the same. Okay. So you want him to be the same kind of a smiling optimist at the end as the beginning? Yeah, I think so. Okay. So Wendell goes, and then this wizard says, you don't want to know the future because you can't change it. Yeah, that's what happens. And Wendell says, I want to find out the future anyway. Yeah. Okay, so that's where I would say I'd like us to do a little bit more work. So if you like Wendell as Wendell is, like, I have two questions for you to think about. One would be, is the ending, does it match that tone of the warning from Trem, and does the story kind of follow that? And is there a way back on the first page, like, to say why, like, I guess one thing I don't understand is, why does Wendell have to know the future? And you don't necessarily have to answer that, but the answer to me is that so there could be right now, so the story could be told. So I think it'd be more interesting if it was like, Wendell has to know the future because of this. And I know part of you, because I know you're in my brain, I say, well, he had a nightmare. Okay, well, so then what caused the nightmare? Even if you know, we might not even have to work into the story, but I think I would like to know, even if it's not in the story, like, I think that would be a point where we could develop the story from, is why does Wendell have to know the future, especially after he's warned? So that's question one. And then question two would be, how's the story reflect a warning from the wizard? Because right now it just feels like it goes very straightforward, even though Wendell does some creative problem solving. And I guess you'd say as a kid, you'd probably say, well, because they were friends. So what the wizard was saying was that, I just love you, Wendell. And, like, I know the future and what's going to happen that took place in the story. And I love you and I'm your friend, so I don't want that to happen. So that's why I'm warning you, for me. And I'd say, okay, so I like your answer there. So maybe we could work that back in there. Like, is Trem and Wendell in a relationship together? Or have they been I guess, I mean, maybe that's tropey, but, like, could Trem be, because I noticed Wendell's single, I noticed you're single, so, that's just interesting to me. But I'd say I think if there's a strong attachment, and that pain is important to not forget about, because I understand what you're saying. The story makes a lot more sense to me in that way. So is the story, I'm struggling because I guess it is Wendell's story, but then the emotional impact of the prediction is being carried by Trem. But then it's also like, even though Wendell gave up all this stuff, I really felt like it was easy. So I guess it still brings me back to why I think if that question gets answered, a lot of these other questions would follow from that. So do you want to just talk it out because we have a few minutes together? Okay, so what are some reasons Wendell would want to know the future? Well, Wendell loves Wendell's people so much that he wants, he's always worried about, everybody being happy and keeping everything perfect. Okay, so and it's kind of weird that it's like this perfect place, but like as soon as Wendell solves one of the problems, everybody kind of kicks back. But people really tried to make the most of the crops, and it sounds like it worked really hard on the tower. So as much as I find them that the fact that the townspeople couldn't defend themselves because they didn't want to, and they'd grown lazy, maybe there is something there, but it's just like moving the pieces around a little, you know? But it's still, again, so Wendell, okay, so let me understand Wendell. So Wendell sounds like he's been king for a while. What was Scotchtown like before Wendell was king? I don't know. Well, do you think like has it always been peaceful? And how did it, like in other times, it never had an army because they were peaceful? Is there a reason for that? Like a geographic advantage? Yeah, geographic advantage sounds good. Okay, and then I guess it would be like would definitely take it away from the story. So I guess we got to focus on Wendell because let's say, well, why isn't there any strife in between the town? I mean, I guess it makes me think of like, is there some other bargain? Like, is there a part of the story, like, why is the town perfect? Is that what the real pain of being Wendell? Like, does Wendell almost already know this? Or it almost reminds me of like some sort of loop in some sense. I wonder if you were feeling that way when you wrote it. I don't know. What do you mean? Well, it's almost like Wendell's sacrifice at the end, even though it's kind of somewhat figurative because that wouldn't, or some sort of, or magic. Because Wendell is not enough, like Wendell's not providing enough compost to undo what the ocean did in such a short period of time, right? So that's kind of like some sort of supernatural act or magical act, or it takes us out of our suspension of disbelief. But it's also like, just like Trump said, oh, somebody has to make this big sacrifice so the town can carry on and be perfect again. Like that would be interesting as a series of stories. I mean, now I feel like I'm taking the reins from you and taking over too much. So I'm overstepping my bounds. But it would be like, oh, Wendell pops out of the earth as a flower again. Maybe he's like some sort of Cabbage Patch child, and then he becomes king again. And then he repeats the whole thing over and over. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's part of me that mistook Wendell as like totally calm and optimistic. Is Wendell really that calm and optimistic? If he is, then why does he need to know the town's future after he's warned that he can't change it? I mean, I guess in that sense, it kind of makes sense too. Is this like, you're like, well, of course, if Wendell could know how to make his town better, then Wendell's going to go find out. So this is actually like maybe prototypical perfect sleepy story, more perfect than the stories I tell. So I guess in some sense I should congratulate you because this is maybe I didn't see it till just now, but really you've designed a story better than any of the Sleep With Me stories I've ever told. I mean, now I will say I'm not sure this story is sustainable, much like the Brad Bird constraint of like conflict in a utopia. I mean, Brad Bird wasn't saying that. That was my projection, like playfulness with it. But if what you're saying is true, this is like the perfect sleep story. So you have a benevolent person and they're also full of love and kindness and confidence. And they're so benevolent, they're going to go to the end of the line every time in their benevolence, whatever the cost, whatever the sacrifice, including even knowing things they wouldn't want to know so they can take their benevolence to the end of the line. So I think in that sense, there is still some pain and conflict because, okay, I guess I was saying how perfect your story is, but I can't help my story brain get drawn in because then maybe there is a way, maybe then the missing gap for me in the story, if what you're saying is true, is that there has to be some other bargain or some other sacrifice or some other skill or something Wendell's willing to do to enable the fertilization at the end. And there's really only one thing I can think of, like, but that wouldn't be Sleep Podcast or whatever, or some sort of exchange. I mean, it doesn't have to be with an underworld exchange, but that to provide Wendell with that power and capability and still have it be believable. Like you're talking about an Ursula situation-esque. Like, not that Trem is Ursula, because Trem's just saying, be careful. Like, are you sure you want to know the future? You can't change it. I'm your friend. And now I've seen the future for you, and it's really, really not great at all. And so I got to leave because I can't watch you go through that. So that has some power for me. So I guess your story really is, like, because you just didn't explain that part. But so that's what's calling to me now is, okay, so Wendell finds that out. Wendell's, as you said, competent, confident, calm, loving, maybe codependent. So maybe there is some sort of subconscious neurosis. At least I have to do that and project that. Or maybe not, but that's a lot to bear, I'd say. So then Wendell finds out, because he said, well, if I have the ability to find out how to make things better or keep my people safe, I'm going to do that. Trump says, oh boy, yeah, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be these three things. But for you to be able to do them all, it's a dark place. Now, what you're saying in this story, what I was really complimenting you on, which I'll finish up, because I did have to make it about, had to go into the story swamp there, is that your story really is. It's like, okay, there's a total benevolence. Then there's some more benevolence with the light sacrifice. Got to get rid of my castle to keep everybody safe. Got to get rid of my rich stuff to get everybody food. Then I got to, sacrifice. I got to head to the big farm to defend, to stave off this war. So I'd say the fourth thing would be that, oh, by the way, in order to keep you from the next famine, also can't go to the big farm. So I think that would be it. Would be you can make it mythological. I mean, this is just me having to do that, but because your way is just too perfect, right? Which I guess is luckily I couldn't make Sleep with me like that. I said, wait a second, you can hear me struggling. But it'd be just because it's fun. It's a puzzle this is what we're having fun together with this puzzle. And also I know that you wanted like Wendell's people to do something more. I mean, we don't have to make it about the people though. It could just be that and maybe there's some other point where there's one other person like Trem that says, do you really need to take this to the end of the line, Wendell? Like, is this really what's best for you? Like, and Wendell says, this is what it takes to maintain a utopia. I mean, I guess the irony would be, and then I guess it would be this rebirth thing of like, if it only takes one figure going to the end of the line and beyond to maintain the utopia, what happens after Wendell's gone, right? So I don't know, but I think that interests me that the weight of benevolence or something. That would be like Wendell, like if Wendell was going to do a tell-all story that wasn't, but Wendell would be like the 10 greatest things about being overly benevolent. I think not. The King Wendell story. You can't be overly benevolent. Is benevolent the right word? Do you know? You don't know either. Good. I guess we're one and the same, you and I. So I enjoyed that story. Thanks for sharing it with me. And and I hope everybody drifted off into dreamland. Good night. All right, I want to thank everybody that became a patron recently. I want to thank Jeff, Valentina, and Peter. Thanks, and good night. Karen, Hawkeye, and Jess. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Jack, Eric, and William. Thank you, thanks, and good night. William, Nora, and Alexander. Thanks, and good night. Amy, Regina, and Hannah. Thanks, and good night. Lindsay, Katie, and Loxley. Thanks, and good night. Nicola, Meg, and John. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Hannah, Elizabeth, and Michelle. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Katie, Zoe, and Tessa. Thanks, and good night. Christine, Michael, and Lucy. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Kevin, Jay, and Liz. Thank you, thanks, and good night. James, John, and Abigail. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Emily, Ruby, and Dina. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Christina, Kimberly, and Melissa. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Jenny, Ava, and Emma. Thank you, thanks, and good night. And Krista, Chris, and Di. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Thanks everybody who supports the show on Patreon and supports the sponsors, spreads the word about the show. Show would not exist without those of you that take that extra step to help the show out back. I really, really appreciate it. And here's a little bit about our referral program. Thanks and good night. Hey, everybody, before I tuck you in, I'd love for you to sign up for our newsletter at sleepwithmepodcast.com/midnight mission. Please sign up. We're going to be doing free streams, listen backs. We're going to be building hygiene kits to support people experiencing homelessness. But I can't do it without your support. I need you and a few other listeners to sign up. If you could sign up, if you're listening to back-to-back episodes, and you're not drifting off, or you could remember tomorrow, sleepwithmepodcast.com/midnight mission. Make a huge difference. We're going to have an impact on people who are out there sleeping in the deep, dark night, and we can help them with some small steps and some small actions. Thanks so much.